Hey, welcome to State of the World with me, Sally Lockwood in Dubai. We're going to be talking Iran again today. We're staying focused on this story because at the time of recording, the Iranian people are into a second week of an internet blackout. Now, there's a huge Iranian community here in the UAE. I'm in touch with many, and a few of the Iranians who are in contact with me told me that they received phone calls from their loved ones in the last few days, but those phone lines have gone dead again. Essentially, the Iranian people are living in a digital prison. So we're going to keep talking about this story while their voices can't be heard. Now, we know that thousands of Iranians have been slaughtered following those mass protests that erupted around the country. But we don't know the exact number. We don't know the full picture of what's going on in Iran due to this communication blackout, the fact that journalists can't get in. And we also haven't seen any foreign intervention as we thought could happen, certainly not at the time of recording. So what does this all mean, and what now for the Iranian people? Well, someone who understands better than most the brutality of this regime is Anoosheh Ashoori, who was a political prisoner in Evin prison in Tehran for nearly 5 years, and he was released in a high-profile deal with the British government, along with fellow prisoner Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe back in 2022. His story and his insight is quite something. Take a listen. Thank you so much for speaking to me today. I really appreciate it. Before we get into your story and what happened to you, which is such a huge story to share, because you really do have a unique insight into the brutality of the Iranian regime. Just first, could you give me your reaction to what you've seen happen in Iran in the last week and what you're hearing from your loved ones there?
I'm terrified. I really fear that this may not end well, in the sense that the world is not cooperating enough with the Iranian people. They are left on their own, and they are not armed. They are not warriors to be armed, but the regime is actually crushing them. In fact, I've heard that they have used heavy machine guns, and they're just killing everybody.
It feels, from what we're hearing, not just, in reports, but I've actually been speaking to Iranians here in the UAE. There's at least 500,000 Iranian people living in the United Arab Emirates. And I interviewed a young woman who managed to escape during this internet blackout. And she told me what was happening. And she said, people are being shot in the head. We're being slaughtered, essentially. And you see the reports that there's close to 3,000 official deaths. And then the other reports that actually it's more likely to be 12,000 deaths. And I interviewed as well an Iranian American doctor who said, the Iranian people have done their bit. They've gone onto the streets. They've protested. They've risked their lives. But we can't do this with our bare hands. We need help. And that help hasn't come. So what now, in your mind? What happens now?
It's very difficult to foresee the future, because the way it's going, without the people of Iran receiving any help, I think the massacre is going to. The regime will be emboldened, and they will carry on exactly what they did in the 1980s. They don't have any red lines. In fact, when I was in Evin prison and I was undergoing torture in the infamous interrogation center 209, once I was taken to the chief interrogator, who is also a representative of the prosecutor general, based in Evin prison. He was killed after when the Israelis attacked Evin prison, and he stood there. I was crying. Even the soldier behind me, when he saw me hysterical, he started crying as well. And he was smiling at me. And he told me, look, let me make this clear to you. From an infant to a 99-year-old woman, we have no mercy.
He said those words.
right into my eyes.
Oh my God.
And they really mean it.
I think this is what scares me at the moment is that the Iranian people are now in a second week of an internet blackout, which essentially means they're cut off from the outside world. I spoke to a few Iranians this week who managed to get a phone call from their loved ones on Tuesday, and then the phone lines have gone again. And so we don't know how bad it is. They can't speak to us. They can't shout for help. And help hasn't come in terms of international support, as we thought could happen this week. It sounded like Donald Trump was going to do something and we might see American intervention. At the time of recording, that hasn't happened. So my concern now is that after these mass protests around the country, where people have lost their lives and risked their lives, help hasn't come, and they are now at the mercy of how this regime is going to respond.
What mercy?
And you know better than most what that looks like. So for people who aren't familiar with your story, Mr. Ashoori, you went to Iran to visit your mother, I think, because you live in Britain. You went to Iran to visit your mother in 2017. Tell us about that day that your life changed.
Well, I used to go to Iran 2-3 times a year because I had no reason not to go. And this time, as usual, I went. I think after 10 days, we even went to birthday parties and everything was fine until one day, because I had the zipper of my suitcase broken. So I was going to this local market north of Tehran. And once when I arrived at the foot of the hill where my mom lives, a car pulled over with 4 strong men and they surrounded me. One of them grabbed the suitcase and said, "What is in it?" And I said, "Nothing." So he struggled to look inside. And when he made sure it was empty, they put it in the boot and they manhandled me into the car. I was sitting in the back with 2 people on both my sides. And as we drove into a motorway towards the east of Tehran, the man next to the driver turned around and gave me a piece of paper. And my heart was coming to my mouth. I mean, I was on the verge of having a heart attack. I didn't know what was happening. And he said, "Read this." All I can remember is the title on the top of the paper, which said, which was written, the Department, Ministry of Intelligence, Department of Counter-Espionage. I can't remember the rest of it, but he grabbed it from me. They blindfolded me. I put my head on the lap of the person on my left, and that is when my ordeal started.
Now, you moved to the UK when you were very young, before the 1979 revolution, and then you went back to work in Iran later on, but you ended up being very successful in civil engineering. Just a quick summary of your life story to get to this point. You sold your very successful business, you were settling down into retirement with your family in London, and you'd gone to Iran to see your mother, and then this happened. You were essentially detained on espionage charges in 2017, and you were taken to the interrogation centre at Evin prison, is that right? When that happened. Correct. The before and after pictures of you from those 4 months that you spent in the interrogation centre in Evin prison in Tehran, and I have to say, you look like a different person after those 116 days. Tell us what happened in that time that you were being interrogated by the Revolutionary Guard.
Well, when I was in the interrogation center 209, the cell that I was dumped in, it was a solitary confinement. There was a floodlight over my head 24/7. There was the sound of this malfunctioning air conditioning unit, which wasn't blowing any air, and it was summertime, and it was really hot. And the crying and begging and whimpering of the neighboring cells, the people who were there, together with long hours of interrogation, foul food, sleepless nights. If it continues, I think everybody has a threshold. and I reached my threshold, especially when they insisted that they would kill my family members if I did not cooperate. And they were giving signs, and I didn't know whether it was true or not, but for example, saying that our front door neighbor was repairing their chimney, or they had gone to Greenwich Market where Elika, my daughter, used to sell. She had her stand. She was selling macarons. And the interrogator was smiling and saying that our agents even prefer the pistachio flavor of the macarons.
Oh my goodness. So they already knew all this detail about you, and they were clearly surveying your family back in the
Yes,
UK.
yes. And
Oh my goodness.
they printed from my own laptop. Of course, they had it at their disposal, and they brought prints of the pictures of my children and my wife. And the interrogator would say that, look, this is the last time you see the picture of them alive. Next time we'll bring you pictures of their corpses.
My goodness.
So just imagine a mixture of all the elements that I explained to you. You reach the point. I mean, I reached the point that I reasoned with myself. The only way that I can protect them from any harm was to wipe out the whole problem. And by that, I meant if I didn't exist. So I convinced myself that by eradicating myself from the scene, they will be safe. So I ended up with 3 suicide attempts. Fortunately, I survived, and I lost 17 kilograms. And when they failed to get what they want, they transferred me outside Evin prison to another interrogation center which belonged to the IRGC. Again, everything started from the very beginning, but it took a shorter time. It was 15 days when they realized that there isn't much they can do. And that is when I was returned. And then I went to the notorious hall number 12 of Wing 7 in Evin prison, when I met so many other people in the same situation as I was.
I can't quite imagine how you managed to survive that physical torture, but also the psychological torture that you underwent. Is that a hallmark of how they treat their prisoners there? What did you hear from the other prisoners that were there? Because we know there are a large number of protesters who are locked up in prisons like Evin prison. And you know, this young woman that I interviewed who has recently left Tehran during this blackout said to me, you know, people are just being shot in the head. They're killing us because the prisons are full. That was what she was saying. And I'm sure right now the prisons in Iran are full. Tell me what the other prisoners had been through and who they were.
I wasn't subjected to physical torture, but the way they conduct their tortures is not by exerting physical torture on you, but to make you do it to yourself. Like when I ended up, and I don't know, during that time, you must have heard about another doctor, I forgot his name, who was an environmentalist who they said he committed suicide. We don't know whether he committed suicide or they killed him, because the CCTVs, they said they didn't work, blah, blah. But even if it is true, I can understand what he must have gone through if he had decided to end his life. But when I went back to the hall number 12 of Wing 7, we were about 70 of us in 4 rooms, only 5 toilets without any flushes, no windows, no air conditioning, bed bugs, rats, cockroaches. In fact, in the recent interviews that I've had, I managed to smuggle out some of them. These are some of the bed bugs that I managed to smuggle with myself.
God.
And
my
also,
God. Firstly, that's a lot. Secondly, they're very big. And thirdly, I can't believe you collected that many and managed to get them out with you. Wow.
yes, those we would pick them up at night with sellotapes
Gosh.
And
How,
these are the cockroaches that I managed to bring with myself.
oh my,
And yeah, well, of course, I couldn't bring the rats, but
oh my goodness. It sounds like hell. And you were there during COVID as well, weren't you? So in
yeah,
2020, when COVID swept the globe, the supreme leader refused vaccines for the population of Iran, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
What does that tell you about a government that should put public health as a priority? And what was that like when you were there?
It was terrible. And something they called a quarantine, they had actually allocated one hall. They used to call it quarantine, that you had to go there before you enter the halls. You would stay there for 14 days. But it was so mismanaged that even people who had stayed there for 14 days, before they were allowed to go to their own cells in the halls that they were in, newcomers would come. So there was no point of
So
actually.
everyone was getting contaminated. Yeah.
Yes. And we saw many people getting ill. Of course, when they were infected, they would take them away, and we would never hear from them. But a few times that I went to the medical center. There was this basement where there was the lab there, but there was this portable uh, uh, freezer or refrigerator that they would put the corpses in, like a mortuary, and it was full every time I went down there. And it was really frightening because down there it was quite, the lighting wasn't very good. It was very dim. And there was only this one person in charge of the lab who was really cruel. And I think he was a psychotic person himself. And once he told me himself, he said, what do you expect from me with all these corpses here? And I'm living from 9 to 5 in a place like this. I mean, he was going through another kind of torture but the morgue was always overwhelmed with the number of corpses.
And during that period, the website for Tehran's largest cemetery went offline. Why was that? Do you think there were far more people dying than the regime was making public?
Yeah, exactly like now, where they are creating internet blackout, and international telephone calls are also disconnected. These are such obvious techniques that they use during the times of crisis, so that evidence will not be able to get out while they carry out their atrocities. In fact, we heard from someone who was connected to Starlink that just before morning, they come and they use high pressure water jets to wash the blood off the streets, so that when people come start their life in Tehran, they will not see much of that, the remainders of what they had done the previous night. And the smell of blood, they say is actually fuming inside the city.
What do you know about what is happening right now that the world cannot see because journalists can't get into Iran and the Iranian people can't really make contact for the most part with us?
I don't know any more than you do, but what I can say is that because of the past experience and because having lived there inside that hell, then I can imagine the analogy between the time I was there and now. It must be the same. So therefore, I can say that I can easily imagine what is going on.
It did feel like Donald Trump was going to make a move and there was going to be American intervention. That hasn't happened. He has walked that back and said that he's received assurances that the killings have stopped, that the 800 executions that were planned aren't going to happen. I mean, the fact that they were even going to execute 800 people anyway tells you everything you need to know about this regime. How much worse can things get for the Iranian people, if that's even possible?
Far worse. I think we are the verge of a genocide. What I don't believe, foreign military intervention has never proved that, has never brought democracies into any countries. We have seen that in Iraq, we have seen this in Libya. But what the West can do is to isolate the Islamic regime completely, politically, economically, diplomatically, and freeze their assets and expel. I don't know what the British government envisages having a future relationship with Iran built on mass graves. I mean, what are they waiting for? Is there something that we don't know? Otherwise, you start questioning everything, because this such inaction, such passiveness is just, it's beyond my imagination, beyond my reasoning. Why are they so inactive?
Cutting the Iranian regime off diplomatically, politically, economically, won't that just hurt the Iranian people?
I sometimes find it similar to when somebody has a cancer. So to eradicate that disease, that cancer, sometimes you need to do chemotherapy, you need to go through radiation therapy, and therefore, of course, it is going to affect the healthy cells as well. But what other way is there? And the people of Iran are going through death. I mean, how worse could it become? They are dying gradually. Some are being killed, but those who are still alive, this is a slow death. So, of course, this cancer has to be dealt with. And the only way, but it's not military intervention. That I don't believe will work. But a collective decision made by the free world against Iran, that may be a solution.
We've all been talking about American intervention. You just mentioned the British government there. Do you think the UK needs to be doing more? What more do you want to see from Britain and from other countries?
Exactly. They unite against this, because this is not something that is limited to Iran. Look, the regime gave drones to Russia to bomb Ukraine. And then we have seen conflicts at a small scale between Finland or Poland. So very easily, if the British government is passive and inactive, you never know, very easily it may expand and it may knock at the door of every British citizen when it is too late. So move now and protect your own people.
What is your warning and your message to the world today, Mr. Ashoori?
Please act quickly, both for helping these innocent people who are being killed, because we are all human beings, and we should have more empathy rather than indifference. So please unite and get rid of this cancer once and forever.
Mr. Ashoori, thank you so much for speaking to me. I really appreciate it. Stay in touch, and let's hope we have something more positive to talk about next time we see each other. Take care. Thank you. My thanks to Anoosheh Ashoori for trusting me with his story, and my thanks to you for watching as well. This channel is completely independent. We cover stories that matter, that we think are really important. And if you want to see our updates, then please hit subscribe. It's completely free and you'll see when they drop. And please share this with your friends. Leave a comment, tell me what you want to hear more about. Your support means everything. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys really soon.